at that exact moment. So the first thing he asked me is about the gospel of Jesus' wife.
Okay, not a big deal, but that's not true. The first thing Mark asked Billy was about the crucifixion, and that was very intentional on my behalf because I was like, it's gotta set the tone. I know you and Mark talked about it as well, Wesley, but any comments around that?
It's very interesting here, and we should be asking Mark Menard why he's taking questions from Wesley, Huff, and this guy Anton, the antagonizer of this whole thing. Why are you taking questions from them in advance of this conversation or this so-called debate? And your so-called best friend Billy, you don't even tell him who Wesley is. You just put him into this arena, into this debacle of a so-called debate. It just blows the mind how you did this to your friends. With friends like you, I don't know who needs enemies. And Wesley Huff, I hope you enjoy the Billy Carson fame, because it's not going to last too long when people realize you ambushed him in this so-called debate of yours.
But any comments around that?
Wes on.
Hello.
Wes, we got you back on. So I'll introduce Wes too, but yeah, what I was just saying real quick, Billy, too, is I also a shared belief, I think, too, with you, with God, is I also believe, I know God is within me too. Mm-hmm. It's just, and I don't believe that it's like you have to do 20 circles in the sand and like do a ritual to that was through like my connection with Jesus, where I know throughout my life, that's been my, when things are tough, it's like the strength of God is literally within me. Right. So like where we do agree on, where like a lot of the heresies and stuff through over religious practices would be like, no, you have to come through the head of this church to be blah, 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 you know? Right. And personally, and we're about to...
All right, that's too funny right there. Wesley has to interrupt with a, because he knows he has very little time with Billy. And they have questions already ready to be asked. It's all sand. This is a planned debate on their part. Billy has no clue he's a part of a debate. He thought he was going into a conversation because his best friend told him that's what he was doing.
And personally, and we're about to get Wes on, so we can have two really smart people in this talking about it, but I'm just breaking it down to my level of my understanding. That's been what really drew me in, is kind of when Jesus came and flipped all that on its head and was like, no, we're not, what was it, like the Pharisees. Like,
all right, now watch Mark here. He's got questions on his phone that Billy, I believe, doesn't even know he's going to ask. And of course, Billy didn't have the same opportunity to give questions to Mark, the moderator, his best friend, who I contend just backstabbed him in the back, along with Wesley did the same thing. They ambushed Billy. And Anton, the antagonizer, Mark the Meek, and Wesley were all a part of it.
Like the Pharisees, like what were the hype? He's like, we're not having to go through all the rules. He's like, they're actually worse than this thief right here. And really looked at what was in people's hearts, you know? Right. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I know it has been for my life.
All right, another interesting thought before I close this video out. Mark the Meek, he knows Billy doesn't know Wesley, but he knows Wesley knows Billy. Yet when he introduces Wes, he never actually introduces Billy to Wes. As a moderator and as a good friend, showing Mark's character, in my opinion, never formally introduces the two.
Wesley Huff, historian, linguist, biblical scholar, PhD, and athlete wannabe. I like how you threw that in the bio right there. And Wesley, my man, I think it would be great to... I know you guys were both recently in Egypt. There's tons that I'm interested in. That how all these things show up in Egypt is baffling to me. But just going right to it, I had here, Billy, you talk about how Jesus was never crucified, which is interesting.
Not a big deal, but that's not true. The first thing Mark asked Billy was about the crucifixion. And that was very intentional on my behalf because I was like, it's got to set the tone. I know you and Mark talked about it as well, Wesley, but any comments around that?
Which is interesting because my wife, who's a Muslim, they believe that as well. Their beliefs, from what I understand from her, are they don't think that Jesus, as they believe is a prophet, God would have him killed. But I don't think they have any historical evidence, as far as I know, as to what or how or why they believe that. I'm curious for you guys both, and if you want to, I guess, go first, Billy, as to how you came about, like the findings where it seems that Jesus was not crucified, or that's not accurate.
If Billy Carson knew he was going to be a part of this so-called debate by Meek, Mark, Anton the Antagonist, and Wesley, the biblical scholar who gets paid, Canadian Apologetics Canada. These guys are a group of people who are trying to instill their understanding of Christianity that has been very detrimental on so many levels. It's clear that Billy got ambushed by these people, and their tactics go back a long way in history.